I'd like to just talk a little bit about the grief that we suffer following a separation. So when a partner doesn't die, but you choose for whatever reason, it can be any at all, for you to part ways, it leaves a weight of grief. Grief is when we are experiencing a transition from what we thought we were. So in the case of a relationship ending, we go from having our identity as in a relationship, in a partnership, and we become in a relationship with ourselves. So our relationship changes. We start to see ourselves as separate, alone. We feel lonely, can feel confused. We're no longer sure quite exactly who we were, who we are, and what we're becoming. It's a strange time. It's a strange transition. We're going from familiar ground and being comfortable with being in a partnership or relationship of some kind, and we're entering that unfamiliar territory where life is different, because as much as life was a certain way as a partner and with a partner, life then changes. Even when we're doing exactly the same routine or things as happened before, all of a sudden there's a person that's not in the day that maybe we don't get to talk to, or we don't get to message, or we don't get to share our day with. And even in a toxic relationship, we can still grieve. You don't end it and then feel all fantastic. You end it and you still carry grief. And it's still the loss of the familiar and the change and the transition. And in some ways, a relationship that had been unhealthy and imbalanced can be even harder again, because you have a trauma bond. You don't always have a trauma bond, but trauma bonds can be when you're in a relationship with people who are passive aggressive, or when you're with someone who's abusive in some way, controlling, and following a period of time when you've split and you've decided to walk your different paths, you really have to tune into the truth of who you are, of where you're going. And it's all right to not know where you're going, but it's really important to find time and space for you, and to allow yourself to grieve, and to try and not go back to that familiar, uncomfortably numb. There was a reason why you both walked different ways. It's also good to get a relationship counsellor if you can, where I do deal with grief and trauma. I certainly don't do relationship counselling, but I do help people manage the grief through MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction. So, come on, Bear. So it's finding time in your day to treasure yourselves, to be kind to yourself, to acknowledge what is now, what was, what's gone before you, and what's coming up on the path. And from that place, you're going to find an inner strength and courage that you never realised you had, and you'll tune into a higher wisdom and perspective that's much needed as you manage to keep continuing, no matter how hard it is, to walk forward and keep breathing life into each new day. And slowly but surely, the grief and the pain and the weight, it will get less heavy as you move on. Life is like that, and we go through times in our lives where sometimes it's really difficult to move forward because we're so challenged in where we're at now. We're not able to see what's possible and available to us on the other side of it. But when we do get the courage to move forward and break away from the chains of uncertainty and insecurity, we do find possibilities and opportunities in our midst.